Have you ever held something so tightly in your hands that your knuckles turned white, afraid that if you let go, you'd lose everything? We live in a world that screams at us to accumulate, to protect what's ours, to build bigger barns for our blessings. But what if I told you that the very thing you're clutching could be the prison keeping you from the abundant life God promised? Let me share something with you today that will challenge everything our culture teaches us about security and success. The Bible has a radical perspective on generosity that goes against every instinct of our flesh. We're going to look at a verse that seems almost mathematically impossible, yet it contains one of the most liberating truths in all of Scripture. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be put into your bosom. For with the same measure that you use, it will be measured back to you. Luke 6:38. Jesus spoke these words during his sermon on the plain, teaching his disciples about the kingdom economy that operates on completely different principles than the world's economy. He had just finished talking about loving enemies and not judging others, and now he's revealing a divine principle that connects our generosity directly to God's provision. This isn't a formula for manipulation or a prosperity gospel gimmick. This is Jesus explaining how the Father's heart works. Notice the progression Jesus uses here. He doesn't just say you'll get something back. He says good measure, then pressed down, then shaken together, then running over. Picture a merchant in the marketplace measuring grain. First, he fills the container with a good measure, a fair amount. Then he presses it down so more can fit. Then he shakes it so the grain settles and even more can be added. Finally, he keeps pouring until it's overflowing, spilling out more than the container can hold. That's the picture of God's response to our generosity. When we give with open hands, God doesn't just reciprocate, He multiplies. He gives back in such abundance that we can't contain it all. But here's what we miss when we rush through this verse. The phrase, "will be put into your bosom," refers to the fold in the garment that people used as a pocket. God's blessing isn't just handed to you. It's poured into the very place where you carry your life, into your daily existence, into the fabric of who you are. The last part of this verse is crucial. Jesus says, "For with the same measure that you use, it will be measured back to you." You determine the size of the scoop. If you give with a teaspoon, don't expect a return measured in buckets. If you give grudgingly, calculating the minimum, you're setting the standard for what comes back to you. But if you give extravagantly, sacrificially, joyfully, you're inviting God to respond in the same manner. Here's what breaks my heart. So many believers are living in self-imposed poverty because they've bought the lie that holding on tight equals security. They're white-knuckling their resources, their time, their talents, thinking they're being wise stewards. But stewardship isn't hoarding, it's circulation. God didn't bless you so you could build a dam. He blessed you so you could be a river. Generosity isn't about money alone. It's about your time when someone needs you. It's about your attention when the world is distracted. It's about your forgiveness when someone has wronged you. It's about your encouragement when someone is ready to give up. Every time you give anything of value, you're entering into this divine exchange Jesus describes. The enemy wants you to believe that giving diminishes you. That's his oldest trick. He whispered it to Adam and Eve. If you don't take and keep, you'll miss out. But Jesus is saying the exact opposite. Giving doesn't diminish you. It positions you for a supernatural return that defies logic. When you give, you're not losing, you're sowing. You're not being depleted, you're making room for more. I want you to understand something profound today. Generosity is an act of worship. When you give, you're declaring that God is your source, not your job, not your investments, not your security system. You're saying with your actions that you trust Him more than you trust your bank account. You're breaking the power of mammon over your life. What are you holding on to today that God is asking you to release? Is it money? Is it time? Is it a grudge? Is it control? Whatever it is, I promise you this: God can do more with what you surrender than you could ever do by keeping it. Open your hands, let go, give generously, and watch as God pours back into your life blessings that overflow beyond what you can imagine. That's not just a nice idea. That's a kingdom principle straight from the mouth of Jesus.